Hey everyone, welcome back to Make It Happen Mondays, where we talk about sales, business, entrepreneurship, personal growth, mental health, and everything in between with guests I truly respect and I think make a positive impact on the world around us. Now, today's conversation is a big one. It's with David Brier. Check this out. He is known by many as the Brandfather and is the recipient of 320 international awards and the Presidential Ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship medallion, who has generated over $9 billion in brand value across 4 decades for companies from startups to Fortune 500s. The best-selling author of The Brand Intervention and his new book, Rich Brand, Poor Brand. He is applauded by likes of the New York Times, best-selling author of Pitch Anything, and a multi-million-dollar deal maker. Oren Klaff, looks like. He's also called a brand genius by the billionaire Cardone. Not exactly my favorite person, but, got some status there anyways. And the Shark Tank's Daymond John, who I absolutely love, calls him the brilliant with branding. This was a really interesting conversation because obviously David's been around the block for a while. And he's got a really interesting and unique take on brand and how to build your own personal brand, but also how to build business brands. And as you all know, I think personal brand is one of the most important things that we should all focus on right now because it is something that AI cannot take away from us. And we dove into that a little bit later. Actually, you need to listen to the end of it because we had a really rich conversation about what I did with Guy Kawasaki. And if you haven't listened to what I did with Guy Kawasaki, Google John Barrows or Make It Happen Monday, Guy Kawasaki, and you'll see what I did with his AI thing. We brought up a really interesting conversation at the end. But with David, we started with his origin story as always. He's got a really interesting one. He grew up in Brooklyn, really diverse backgrounds as far as wanting to be in art, Rembrandt, all these different influences that he had. And graphic design was really where he wanted to get into. But then he was really woken up by Herb Lubalin, something like that, I think. Anyways, and it was about typography. And it really struck him about how the letters weren't just letters and typography wasn't typography, but it was telling a story. And that's really where he started to look at design differently from a strategic standpoint, not just to make it look pretty. And that dictated a lot of the rest of his career. So he started his first company, and we talked about some of the projects that really resonated with him that got him to realize the importance of a strategic, thoughtful approach to branding, not just following trends. And then we dove into some of the stuff about brand intervention in his book and some of the things that have changed now or that he would change as it relates to AI, and because he wrote it well before that. And talked about how to be different and how to take risks, what his evaluation of a risk is, and how being different is really the best way to stand out. My curiosity was about authenticity and values, right? Because I always wonder why it's so hard to be authentic. And, I think this world is just yearning for authenticity, but everybody's so afraid to be authentic. So we dove into that a little bit. And how to play the long game in this world of short-term satisfaction here, and how the best brands always play the long game. So we unpacked a lot here, and he's got a lot of resources too. So I do recommend you take a look at his website and everything. It's going to be in the show notes. But I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Let's make it happen. David Brier, welcome to the Make It Happen Monday podcast, my friend. How are you today?
I am very, very, very good. I am ready to light this up so that give people, raise the bar so freaking high on a Monday morning that the rest of the week is it's like their normal 10 now has to be jacked up to 13 for the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Okay, man, I love it. Absolutely love it. Let's get people fired up. So before we get into this, because we're going to be talking about brand, personal brand, corporate brand, all that fun stuff, and how important it is and how it relates to AI and all that fun stuff today. But I always love starting with origin stories, and you have a very interesting one, my friend. I was doing some homework on you, and you grew up in Greenwich Village, so you got some diversity in you as far as the exposure to it. But you started your career in art, and you had a lot of influence, oil painting, and it saw that you were influenced by Rembrandt, Michelangelo, and Da Vinci. Talk to me about that, because art was my first major in college. I realized I wasn't very good at it very quickly. But my mom's an artist. She's an art major. She taught art. So what hooked you on that, and how did that, and then we'll talk about the influence that had on brand.
Basically, all right. So born in Brooklyn, then, at 5, we moved to Queens, Jamaica, Queens. And that was just like a melting pot. Brooklyn was the ultimate melting pot of on my block, I I think I had Italian, Hungarian, Russian, black, white, and of course, the inevitable bully. Literally, the guy's name was Butch. Okay, you can't even write a script like that. Like, you can't even say, really? Yeah, the guy's name was Butch. Hated the son of a bitch. Really a bully on the corner. Anyway, after age 5, we split, moved to Jamaica, Queens. More melting pot. Then at 15, moved to Long Island, which I did not dig. Long Island culturally was such a departure from Brooklyn, Queens. And then at 20, I moved out to. I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm moving to Manhattan. I'm starting my career. I basically loved art. I loved anything that captured my attention and imagination early on. And then I was also very good at, and it's funny when I'm talking to artists or people who are involved in the arts or creativity of any sort. I said, to me, the biggest skill was, because people go, how the hell do you do that? And I was like, well, I look at what I find something I like, and I now replicate it. I mean, and that's granted, there's a skill set there, but that's what it was for me. It was like, okay, I like that. I like the way that person's face is. I like the way that thing is. Or I might dig the way something smelled. Like, that's amazing food. What is that? So things, music, sound, architecture, I was just very, very, very attentive to those things that made me stop and go, what the hell's that? I noticed the stuff that was not the vanilla, cookie cutter, same crap assembly line output, but that building, that piece of art, that that made me stop in my tracks and become engaged.
I love it. That's why, Cubism was the thing that broke my brain early ages. As I remember looking at the paintings in a Museum of Fine Arts here in Boston, and there was actually it was MoMA in New York that has and I just looked at it, and Les Mademoiselles de Magnifique is my favorite one, and I just was like, what? And I, even at a young age, it was like the whole idea of 4 dimensions on a 2-dimensional plane. I'm like, what? And I just became fascinated. And again, I was around it. My dad was, even though he was an engineer, he was a musician. He played the saxophone. So, and my mom was an artist, and I was just enamored with it. Same thing. Like, I catch things where I'm walking down the street and a building looks pretty cool. I'm like, ooh, wait a minute, that's different. And so I think it goes back to anything being different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's one of the reasons that I love, like Billy Joel. I mean, I think that he's one of the timeless greats. He weaved story and genre, and if he needed to go doo-wop, he would go all in on doo-wop. If he needed to go in, romantic ballad, he would do that. If he needed to do something from Vienna, he did. But one can, from the outside, could look and say, well, he was really chameleon-like. And yeah, but to me, the greatest creators, and this is true for whether someone's an entrepreneur, whether they're a salesperson, whether they are a CEO, with a vision, or just in any capacity, or chef. It's like, do you have the ability? It's like, wait a second, I have a hunch. Let me explore that hunch, and let me win with it or fail with it, but let me learn something more about it and come out the other side. And to me, that is where, and I think it's as true for athletes as it is for any endeavor. So that to me is kind of like the thing. It's like, do I have a hunch that XYZ is possible? Let me explore that. And that's where it gets pretty freaking magical.
And I think it's also about breaking down the components of it as well, and becoming a master at each one of them. And I think that's what really enamored me about Picasso, was that he didn't just become Picasso. Like, he mastered oils, and then after he mastered oils, he mastered acrylics, and then it was all these different mediums that he, to your point, dove into to be curious about it, and he would learn it, and then be like, okay, I've learned that. I haven't, you never master anything, but I've learned it. Now I'm going to move to the next step. And then eventually let me bring all this stuff together. So it's like in sales and business, it's like in sales, you got to learn how to cold call to get that meeting. And then in that meeting, you got to learn how to have those questions. And if you learn each one of those really, really well, now you can put it all together, and you don't have to try the tips, techniques, any of that stuff, because you just are.
Yeah. You got it.
So so fine art was kind of your starting point, but then I read about you read into upper and lowercase magazine with Herb
Llewellyn.
Yeah, Herb
Llewellyn.
Llewellyn. Talk to me. This is the quote that I found was interesting. He said his work was intelligent, it was beautiful, it was communicative. It wasn't just design for design's sake. It was design that meant something. How did that, looking at typography, right? Because a lot of people look at it as like, whatever, that's just, word, like letters on a page. How did that open your eyes up to the strategy around design versus just the beauty of it?
Okay. So basically here's the thing. And this is true and going to be useful for anybody. I don't care whether you're oriented to design or if you're not, if that's kind of like some other arena and you don't get it. 98% of the stuff that's published today is shit. It's complete and utter shit in terms of the way it looks, the way it communicates, and all that kind of stuff. Even to the point where right now, when I am designing brands and working with my clients, if they have an internal design team, I am shocked by the general design illiteracy that exists. There's the craft and the skill in terms of, okay, you need to know what's the, like right here, you could even see this. That's a poster with a collection of logos and stuff that I've done over the course of the years, and all that, and a lot of that was done even before computer. So all that shit was done by hand. But the bottom line is so there's a design illiteracy in terms of the craft, but there's also, even more to the point, illiteracy in terms of, do you see that what you just did by you just approaching it in a very two-dimensional, shallow way, like I'm going to move this from here to here because, quote unquote, it looks better, close quote. And you realize you now have just covered XYZ's face, and we now don't know who or what we're even talking about. I mean, this is the kind of crap that I run into that I'm shocked about. So what ended up happening was I was going to be an illustrator. So I took my artistic skills. I was going to be an illustrator. I was like, okay. And then I started, before I formally went into my career, in knowing that I would be dealing with art directors, and that okay, I give my illustration to an art director, and I cross my fingers and hope that art director doesn't lose their mind and actually still has some sense of taste and doesn't now take what I've created and do something weird or screwy with it or whatever. Now, so I might as well buy a lottery ticket. It's like I'm crossing my fingers, man. Now, so I'm like, well, what? And then I saw UNLC. I was literally in an art class, and it was sitting on a drawing table. Never heard about this. And for those that don't know this, UNLC stands for upper and lower case. It was all about typography and the art of typography, which is letter forms and how they work and how they tell a story, how they are used in design, etc. Good. So you start leafing through this, and I'd never seen anything like this in my life. The craft, it's kind of like everyone has their virgin story. And what I mean by that is the first time they heard a piece of music that broke their cherry, right? Or that piece of food that they ate and they're like, oh my God, I've never tasted anything like this. That moment of awakening, right? Our eyes are open, our taste buds are open, our ears are open. Bam, a whole new world has just opened up. So that's basically what happened for me. I was like, holy shit. Because every page I'm looking and seeing the deliberateness. I'm seeing the intentionality. I'm seeing there were no two letters that were just allowed to, okay, that's the way they were typeset or put. I mean, nothing was left to chance. It's kind of like for those that are into jazz, it's like, people had that breakthrough like Miles Davis kind of blew, right? It was like this, the pivotal, holy crap, what a groove. It was like a swagger. It was like, holy shit. Or a Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, or pick, anybody can pick whatever. You pick or whatever. And that is what happened. And literally it was at that moment, I was like, pivot. If I can exercise that degree of control to make sure the outcome was what I actually wanted it to be, so that the person getting it, it's kind of like if you or I were opening up a restaurant, and it's like, and we had like a number of, you had blah, 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 people that it went through, and we were early in the assembly line. We had to have a lot of trust and confidence in those that were later on who finally said, yep, it's okay to go out to the customer. and be presented to their table. And we wouldn't end up like someone going, okay, yeah, we've given you a 1-star review or whatever the hell. So it was that kind of thing that I wanted to basically take more responsibility and accountability for the outcome.
Love it. So then out of school, you started your own company effectively, right? I think it was David Brier Design Works. What was one of the projects early on that highlighted this strategy versus just design for design's sake for you? Was there a couple of projects that you worked on where you're like, holy shit, like being thoughtful and strategic about this design versus just making something pretty made a massive difference?
I have been blessed. Some people might say cursed, but that's their problem. It's not mine, because I mean, all I can say, and for those that are listening, they're like, who the hell is this Brier guy? It's like, look, I've been doing this shit for 45 years. Okay. It's because I love what I do. And I did not go to business school, but yet I've actually helped my clients, and I know this factually, generate well over $9 billion of all sizes, shapes. Because I'm insatiably curious. I'm insatiably interested. I'm insatiably like, why the hell not? If someone gives me a cookie cutter thing that I've heard 20 times, 50 times, 100 times before, and I'm like, and I don't feel excited about it. And I'm not like me, David Brier, but me from the standpoint of, if I am a customer of this product, I put myself in that seat. Is this going to move the dial? Is this going to have an impact? If I were approached this way, would I love it? Would I laugh my ass off and say, you're a freaking genius? Like bravo, how come more people in your industry aren't doing more shit like this? So that was the thing that I started with design, but I kept on going, okay. And I'll tell you actually probably the pivotal point that broke the camel's back. In school, in design school, in art, anytime you're taught that, guys are, hey, make it look beautiful, work on your portfolio, have a gorgeous looking portfolio that you can now show. What is that? What is that telling you and me? That's telling you and me, okay, the most important thing is our portfolio. Now, what did I learn in the real world? The most important thing was that person sitting fucking across from me who actually had a problem that they needed to solve. Okay? It wasn't, they didn't give a shit about my portfolio. And so what I found was I started to see that my meetings fresh out of school I wanted to get to showing my portfolio as much as possible. So the more they looked at my portfolio, the more that they would be impressed, the more they would actually decide to hire me for their project, this, that, the other. What I started to see over the course of years was I actually was very curious. I was like, well, you just said blank. Why is that? What's the problem? What's the challenge? What's the frustration? What's the whatever? Because I wanted to really understand. I found that my meetings went from trying to get 85+% showing my portfolio and maybe 10 or 15% actually here talking to them, to now flipping to actually going 95% discussion, questions, interaction, and only at that point was the final 5%, and those actually resulted in closes. So what they didn't teach you in school was, oh, by the way, the person sitting across from you is a hell of a lot more fucking important than that freaking portfolio that we've been talking to you about for years.
And they don't give a shit about your portfolio. And in the world of sales, like that's why reps who jump in and product pitch or show the demo without having that curiosity, without giving a shit about what the client actually needs, fail, right? And I tell them, I tell reps all the time, it has everything is commoditized. Everything. I don't care what you sell, who you sell to, it's all commoditized. It has nothing to do with what you sell. It has everything to do with how you sell. That to me is like, it's asking the right questions, being curious, showing the part of your portfolio that aligns with what their need is, not your whole fucking portfolio. I remember this is the kiss of death. I remember this was my turning point where I went in and, I was told early days, like ask more questions, 2 ears, 1 mouth, blah, 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 right? Make sure that they speak longer than you. So I would ask like 35 minutes worth of questions in a 1-hour meeting. It didn't matter what you said, right? After those started, you were getting my pitch. It didn't matter. It hardcore. Thank you very much for that. Right. And I would we were founded in. And then at the end, I would be so proud of myself. But I realized I picked up on this one word that if you ever hear this word at the end of one of your pitches, demos, whatever it is, you've done a terrible job. And it's the word digest.
Right.
He goes, hey, you know what, David, I'm going to need a little time to digest what you just told me right there. Why don't we circle back in a couple of weeks? We'll take it from there. Does that sound fair? If you ever hear that, stop and apologize to the person that you just wasted their time, because it's our job to help them digest that information, right? So I got a few other questions, but I wanted to jump to this one, which is, you talk about the beige, right? Like how the beige branding is what's killing most companies today. And then there's risk, right? So there's normality and everybody looks the same and whatever, and that's safe. Kind of the standard. And then there's the holy shit risk. How do you determine risk? Because there's been some brands that have gone way too far, right? And they fractured the trust of their audience, whatever. So, I'll give you an example here, right? Like, what happened to Bud Light. Okay. And I don't want to get into what anybody believes in. I don't give a shit. But that was a massive risk for them to go with the transgender beer thing and it blew up in their fucking face, right?
Completely.
Now they've recovered and whatever. So when you're sitting in a room with marketers, with people, and you're talking about, we can't be beige, we got to be different. How do you assess the risk of being different? And then what's the scale of like, yeah, let's go for this and see what happens.
Right. Okay. So there's so many factors to what you just the door you just opened. The basic. So first of all, different isn't done for the sake of being different. That's the first thing. Another thing is that I will always tell clients to say, look, different is better than better. And they're like, huh? I said, okay, so let's back up a little bit. Every one of your competitors are coming to the party with, we're the best, we're the greatest, we're the simplest, we're the fastest, we're the thisest, the thatest, da 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 da. Do I want to come in and play to the same in the same sandbox as everyone has already been playing in, with the same metrics? And I'll give you this as an anecdote. One of my favorite points when I'm actually talking to a prospective client, I love when they go, hey, you know what? Like we're talking, da 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 da, and then I love, this is what I call the hands over the chest thing. And they say, that's interesting, David. Now, and now they ask me some very deep, meaningful question. Now I'm inside, I'm smiling my ass off from ear to ear, because I know this question came from a YouTube that they watched, or a book that they read, or something that they saw from Simon Sinek, or something that they read from Seth Godin, or what a blah, 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 blah. It's like, and I'm smiling because I say, I'd let them finish. I don't cut them off. And then I say, I understand why you're asking that question, but the question you should really be asking is, boom. So that's me pivoting and reframing and taking control of that conversation, and that's all based on this point, which I think probably most directly answers the initial question. People don't come to new conclusions with old information. Prospects do not come to new conclusions with old information. Potential buyers do not come to new conclusions with old. We are in the business of new conclusions. We all are. We are in the business of disruption. We are not in the business of sounding like our competitors, which are cliches, which is vanilla shit, which is the same metric that they're going to be judging us by, because we have chosen to keep ourselves in the same lane. Hence the importance of differentiation. And what I mean by old information, that doesn't mean like shit they heard 25 years ago. That's like 5 minutes ago, before this meeting, anything before this meeting. And it's industry sacred cows. It's the same old, well, everyone knows. It's, well, everyone's done this. Every innovation that we all now take as mainstream today, whether it was Netflix, saying, screw you, Blockbuster, we're not going to just force people. I mean, you look at a Blockbuster thing, it's like, that was a business model. Well, they were like, no, we want our boxes. We want people to walk in. We want them to buy the stale Twizzlers, the stale popcorn, and look in all these boxes and find most of them empty. And we want to force them to that. And by the way, we want to charge them for having a life. So late fees, we're going to freaking penalize you for actually having an existence in the world. That's their business model. Okay, that's an interesting business model. So Netflix comes along and they start out with their DVD, by mail. Okay, that simplifies. but they realized they weren't married to their solution. They were married to the customer's problem or objective. That to me is that if anyone involved in sales, anyone involved as building a business in growth, if they don't understand that distinction, work it out. I mean, that is like your make break point. You cannot be married to, well, we are the blah, 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 blah. Well, first of all, if you're married to a technologies are going to come and go and all that kind of shit. Okay, they're going to shift and pivot and da 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 da. I mean, so you're married to an outcome, but that outcome better be freaking married to the actual problem aspiration that our customer has. Right?
So is that how you assess risk? Is regardless of what the campaign is, that if it's in the interest of solving a problem for your clients, then or a problem for your customers, therefore risk is relative. Is that effectively what you're getting to?
I would say that it's relative, but then we go, okay, now let's take that what you just said a step farther. So any business is trying in some way to do just what you just described. Good. So 99% of them have the imagination of a chiclet. And for those that are too young, chiclet was a chewing gum that we actually chewed and we spit out on the curb, and you stepped in and got in the bottom of your shoes. Okay, that's what chiclet is. Okay, so if you're having the intelligence of a chiclet, it's not a good thing. Now, all right. So the thing is, we know the problem that our customer has. Okay, fine, we know the problem that our customer has. How are you going to now come out of the gate and frame it differently, uniquely? I mean, look, and for those that have been around, so before when the iPod was like the third or fourth freaking MP3 player, it wasn't the first. They weren't the first to market, but it was the first to position it with something that music lovers gave a shit about. We didn't care about how much memory. We didn't care about the this, the that, which is what everyone was doing. They could have said faster. They could have said cooler, da 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 da. But it was what? It was 1,000 songs in your pocket. How badass is that? 1,000 songs in your pocket. You spoke like I speak. And that was their point of difference. Bud Light was a fucking disaster, and everyone connected with it should have been fired. I believe they all were. They were stupid because they took something that they observed culturally and they said, let's jump on that bandwagon. What does that have to fucking do at the end of the day with drinking beer? And what does that have to do with the demographic of your beer drinking? Well, it's like, you know what? It's like, if you're going to talk to me, it's like, freaking show me a goddamn freaking, thing with beer that is like, that somehow remains stabilized while I'm on a rockin' Bronco or something. I mean, like, give me a problem that I can relate to. It had nothing. It was difference for the sake of difference, and it was stupidly vetted. It made no sense. And they got what they deserved because it was so stupid and it was so off point. Difference needs to be sometimes the difference is the business model. Sometimes the difference is the business mechanism. Sometimes the difference is everyone's talking really, and we're like, you know what? We're the rebellious. We're liquid death, man. Murder your thirst.
Brilliant.
So it's like it's like picking a battle that makes sense, and then using difference to amplify that and elevate that. That's the thing that people normally don't get. They're just, well, we're going to be different to be different. Well, this sure is different from everybody else. Well, yeah. Is that anything anybody gives a shit about? And they didn't.
So then let's talk about brand as it relates to, right now it is so tempting to jump on trends, right? Because gone viral, this happened. And the foundation is much more of a long-term strategic part about brand. But how do you balance that short-term trends on TikTok and holy shit, there's an opportunity for us to jump on it so that we can get some exposure here with the brand identity long-term strategy? Because I think that's what a lot of people, especially sales reps and people who are trying to build their brand, they're just trying to let me do this video now because that's what everybody else is doing on TikTok. Let me create my format of my content this way because that's what's going viral right now. And I've always had a hard time with chasing trends, but it's hard to the short-term gratification is way more appealing than the long-term. And I just feel like in general, as a society, we've gotten away from long-term strategy. We are so short-term focused that it's killing us. So how do you balance that in this world specifically?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and you're right. We live in a sort of microwave mentality. We want that instant gratification, and all I can tell you is the greatest brands play the long game. The greatest entrepreneurs play the long game. I mean, look, I don't care whether people, love him, hate him, or whatever like that. But you take someone like Elon Musk, who is incredibly successful, and now the rumor is that he's going to be the first trillionaire.
Sure. Yep.
So you go, wait a second. Wasn't everybody just like burning his cars? Blah, blah, blah. And okay, so we had this blip. First of all, he doesn't get caught in the blips. He also doesn't chase trends. He doesn't even freaking advertise. He just he operates. He has such an understanding of the ecosystem and the nuances of business and money and all those various things. And he's brilliant at doing what he does. He's playing the long game. You look at I would challenge anyone to, if they are like, wait a second, I got to play the short game. I got to meet this quarter's quota or blah, 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 or whatever, or this month's blah, 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 or whatever you got. Pause for a minute. Just give yourself the mental room to just chill and look and go, okay. You look at Gary Vee. When Gary Vee first started talking about patience, you're like, are you crazy? You're like the Energizer Bunny. What patience, right? Or you look at Richard Branson. You look at any entrepreneur, Alex Hormozi, any of these guys. There's a hustle. There's a willingness to hustle. There's a willingness to lean in. There's also a willingness to take risks and experiment. You know what? Unless you're in the White House and you have the red dress or whatever, unless you have an incident like that's like almost nearly impossible to recover from, unless you have like some that is like nearly impossible. But what are the odds? The odds are so against that happening. How many of those have actually occurred historically? And they're few. So odds are in your favor to, one, take risks, try things. I think chasing trends, you're going to go insane because, it's like, who could have predicted Sweeney's ad? And now you're going to try and replicate that. Or, who could predict WhatsApp as like a freaking viral culture thing? It's like, we got to have our own WhatsApp. It's like, look, you can either be a follower, and here's the big mistake. People see something, they see it, they see a viral something. We got to have our viral something. Okay, be a little smarter and say, okay, what about that actually, step back, take the macro. Don't go so micro. This is the mistake. Going micro is the mistake. You got to step back and go, okay, what was happening in that industry's space that allowed that to break through? And then you'll come away with some insights such as, they did this zig when everybody was doing that zag. Because the things that we notice, we as consumers of products and purchasers, we notice differences. We don't notice the stuff that's the same. And one thing that I tell people is like, if I had any brand to choose, as like, you'd say, David, you got one brand that you can choose that Walmart would be at the bottom of the list because no one is loyal to Walmart. They're only loyal to the low price. They're loyal to the low price. Now that's not a customer base that I don't care to have a customer base like that. I'd rather be an Apple or something like that, where it's like, how many times does anybody ever walk into an Apple store and say, hey, what's the best deal I can get on blah? No, they're walk in, their credit cards out. They say, I want that color. I want that much memory. How fast can I have my box? Done deal. And that's what everyone should be striving for as far as a brand. So chasing trends is a loser's game. and there's certain things you can play on. Yeah, everybody jumped on Cracker Barrel's like shitstorm of stupidity. I watched all these people doing it, and I waited until they actually pivoted back and said, "Oh, okay, we have seen the light. We're no longer idiots. We've seen the light." But it was also a stupid move. But there are other issues that compared to that, and Jaguar did an equally moronic. That was like the dumbest freaking. I don't even know what they were thinking. And you and I could probably spend an hour talking just on that alone.
That's a case study in and of itself of like, what the hell did you do? Like you had a niche, like just stay focused on that niche because it was class. There was a brand to it, and they just flipped it on its head. I think I saw some stat about like last year, they sold like 65 cars or something like it in a region where they sold thousands before.
Yeah. I did a post on there. It was like a 97.5% drop in sales. And people, and it's like, and yeah, I mean, what you had was two things. You had an stupid Bud Light 2.0 kind of moment, just really dumb, totally off brand as far as demographically, completely spitting on their legacy. Now, and I did this post and it's like crazy. It got like 300,000. I mean, the amount of people interacting with it was insane. I had a few people who were like, well, if you only did your homework, blah, blah. They already said they were going to be stopping production. And I said, well, if that's so true, where are all the pre-orders? I got two questions for you. One, where are all the pre-orders for their amazing new fleet of electric vehicles? And two, how come people who had an order for a Jaguar canceled? How come we had those two things happening concurrently? If it was so blemish-free, give me answers to that. And then I will entertain. Otherwise, you just want to fight. And if you just want to fight, I don't give a shit about you. I mean, that's stupid.
So where does brand start, right? Because I think a lot of people, I've always had this challenge personally of why it's so hard to be authentic out there, right? Because to me, authenticity is the biggest superpower that you have. It's the most defensible thing, right? But it's blatantly obvious to me how starved people are for authenticity, but how scared they are to be authentic. And I think for me, at least, brand starts with authenticity, but in order to get to authenticity, I think you got to start with like real core values. Like, what do you believe in? And so my take on it is like, even with reps and everybody else, I'm like, before you make whatever decision you make as far as your career or anything like that, why don't you take a step back and do some core value exercise here to understand what's really important to you? And so that then once you have that lens, you can start to look for opportunities, clients, prospects, whatever that fit those values, and then you can align with them. And you could do some special things when that happens. But if you misalign values, you're just going to argue and fight. So from your perspective, if somebody's listening to this right now and saying, all right, I want to build my brand, and should I post this? Should I do that? Like, where do you tell them to start? Organizations too, like step back, where do you start that foundation? Because if you don't have a solid foundation, it's like a house of cards.
Totally. Okay. So first of all, in this baby, in this one, I found that there were 65. And for those that are just listening, if you're not, well, why did I just was pointing to Brand Intervention, that book, which Daymond John from Shark Tank, he wrote the forward to it. The thing was, when I started the book, there were 6,500 books on branding. 6,500, not 65, not 650, 6,500 books on branding. Now, by the time I was done, now you go to Amazon today, there's over 25,000 books on branding, and there was no single agreed upon definition of branding. Are you like freaking kidding me? No single agreed upon definition. So I took that upon myself to say, well, that's bullshit. I've been in business long enough to know if there's a gazillion opinions about XYZ, that there's a fundamental truth that's missing. So I ended up bringing it down to a 4-word definition, right? The art of differentiation. 4 words. The art of differentiation. And people were like, holy shit, that clarified, that eliminated like all the mist, the cloud, the fog. It's like everything cleared. So that was the first thing. So that's the first point. Now, with that being understood, then we actually now have a foundation from which to have a discussion. Because if we're not differentiating, how are we even getting on anyone's radar? So people tell, well, you gotta have attention, and then people have to, and I love this one. People have to know, like, and trust you. I'm gonna punch the next person I hear say that. I'm gonna punch them. I'm gonna say, you know how many times I've heard that? It's like, what gets someone to the point of knowing, liking, and trusting you? There are steps to arrive at that point. One says it like it's just kind of like, well, just make sure to wash behind your ears when you actually, like, are showering or something. There are things that make it possible. So, yes, you want to be real. 2, you want to be real in a way that is different. So, but again, you don't want to just be different for being different, but it's like, what's distinct about your conviction, that core value? How is that unlike what else is out there? Now that leads to this point. There needs to be a hero and a villain to you and your core values. Oftentimes the villain is that the industry's current standard. Oftentimes the villain is the compromise we have all been subjected to, that no one has bothered or cared enough to actually ask and say, why the hell not? Why can't we do something actually a little different that Dyson comes out, vacuum cleaners hadn't changed in 50, 60 years. And now Dyson just comes out, and I've heard so many different iterations. Whether he did 2,000 prototypes or 4,000 prototypes, he did a lot of freaking prototypes before he actually got to the point where it's like, okay, it works. And he introduces his turbine technology. He used design in terms of color, materials. He changed the whole game. And then he talked about not just the same old. So he certainly used differentiation to do what he did. Gary V used differentiation to talk in a way that no entrepreneur had spoken before. And one could just go down the thing. It's like Michael Jordan, he played differently, but even in Michael's own career, it's like Michael was always an A player. But when did he become legendary? When his game went from, how do I up my game, to how do I elevate the team? That's when he became legendary. It wasn't how do I play better. It's like, how do we play better? And so to me, again, so what does that mean? It's like everything you have just said to you, it framed. There's what I am for, the protagonist, and what I am against, the antagonist. And I can guarantee you, most individuals, whether they're in sales, whether they're reps or their companies that they're working with, they do not know what they're opposed against. All they know is they're pitching their stuff, man. We got to sell our stuff. We got to move our product. Da, 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 da. It's like, okay. But people, I use this as an analogy. The pathway to our customer's front door does not start at our front door. It actually starts at theirs, with the stuff that's most real to them, most real in terms of pain, most real in terms of a challenge, most real in terms of an obstacle or an aspiration. And if we talk to that, you've seen it, I've seen it. The best salesperson, it's like, we feel understood. That person gets me. They get me. They know that why am I dealing with that crap? And so, did that answer your question?
Yeah. To a certain, it's just like that, like going back to that foundation. And I think like I said, the values and I like the protagonist, antagonist piece. It's just, I think so many people are built on a house of cards because they're chasing the trends. They're chasing what's popular and recentering around your core, what you stand for. Right. And also what you stand against, for me,
But I want to interject one point, because it's a place where I've seen people, if they don't know this with what we're talking about right now, they'll end up in a freaking cul-de-sac from hell. And so basically what will happen is this, oftentimes like, oh, okay, now they get into what I call navel gazing. It's like, let me look, I got to figure out my core values, da, 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 da. And one thing that when I'm working with clients, companies, I say the worst place for you to start is looking inwardly. Who are we? What are our values? It's like you're just looking at, you're in a cone of silence, and you don't have the full breadth of intel to actually navigate this well. So I always start out there. Looking outward is actually the best place to start. It's like, okay, what are people having to put up with? What are the current available solutions? What are the options that people have access to? And that is the noise. Because if we're in the business of the art of differentiation, the enemy would be cliches, where we blend into everyone else. And that is the noise out there. So unless we take the inventory of that noise, we are basically screwed. We're kind of like, well, I mean, and when I'm creating brands all the time, it's like we acid test it. It's like, we collect the data, we do all this stuff, we do our homework, we get all the insights, and we develop this incredible narrative, the naming, the this, the that, all this kind of stuff. And then we go, okay, let's check this out. And we even had to do this recently with one of our clients, where we came up with this killer narrative, because we had all the insight, we did all the homework, we did all this, and then we did one final check. And so I went back and looked at what all the competition was saying. Those son of a bitches were saying everything that we had just developed, but I knew it wasn't true. That was where we went a little like whoops, because I knew it's like everything they say was, I call it the political spin. It's like, hey, I love your great family, we're gonna deliver it. It's like, so all the big promises and none of the delivery. So I was like, you son of a bitches. So I had to reframe it. And what we came up with, because they were in the technology space, and the line that we did to reframe it, I call this is what I call the leveling the playing field strategy. And this was, in the wrong hands, even the latest technology means nothing. You see that? Boom. Now all of a sudden you go, whoa, what? Because everyone's claiming, we got the latest, we got the this, we got that. It's like, in the wrong hands, even the latest technology means nothing. And all of a sudden, that just completely reframed it, and it was like, whoa, what are we talking about? And we could back it up. And here's just a point of differentiation, so everyone can get the concept. Here's what we also discovered with the competition. None of these competing companies actually mentioned any specifics, and they never mentioned any actual case studies of clients who actually used them and actually had the outcome that they were saying was true. So they said all the right stuff, but they had no credibility and no social proof. So we went the opposite. So we first started with that pivot, right? In the wrong hands, even the latest technology means nothing, right? And then it's like so-and-so, like we started giving you specifics, and you're like, what? And these like so-and-sos were the exact same pain points that we knew others were already experiencing. So we were hitting them. So you see how differentiation was used strategically to frame that narrative, and it's insanely successful.
Love it. So let's stick on brand intervention for a little bit. You had, I think it was 33 steps to transfer. So it was super tactical, right? If you were to write it today, especially with AI, because you wrote it before AI came out, would you add anything? Would you subtract anything? And where does AI help from a brand standpoint? Or where is it going to replace certain things? Because I think everybody's wondering what the hell this is going to do to all of us, quite frankly. But specifically related to brand, where does AI help and where it doesn't, and how would it adjust some of the stuff that you wrote about earlier?
Yeah, there might be a chapter. I mean, it's not a lot. Because here's fundamentally what people need to understand. Will AI replace tasks or accelerate tasks? Yes. AI factually won't replace people unless someone's job was really a sugar-coated task, right? So the burden is on us, but also the freedom is on us. So to me, one of the things that I tell people is that AI won't replace you, mediocrity will. Okay? And that mediocrity will be our mediocrity. Was I just kind of like coasting, and now I'm like so that I'm just coasting and so complacent that I'm now replaceable by a prompt? Now, and so that's where the onus, to me, will there be fallout? Yes. But I don't think it's going to be the kind of fallout. The ingenious ones will win. And there's one other thing that I have a great relationship with our financial advisor, because he's like, how the hell do you pick your stocks? Because I have this, like, I have a great track record of picking like these killer stocks. And he's like, how the hell? None of it makes sense to him, because all he knows is he knows what he was trained in, these spreadsheets, and he just knows the spreadsheets. He knows, well, historically when things have gone up, then historically they've gone down. And that's like, I'm like, wow, that's so valuable. Thank you so much. That was, you got any more toilet paper I mean, come on, man. And so the thing is that I guarantee you the most human brands are going to absolutely outperform and win over the most automated brands. Automated is going to be, you tell me, you get the CEO, the COO, who actually says, okay, we need to contain our costs on customer support or customer service, and we have payrolls too high, so we're gonna cut this, and we're gonna now introduce menu trees so that people can now go through. People can call up a company, feel completely dehumanized. It's like, I'm not even worth a freaking speaking to a person. Or I love the wonderful tell where after the 5th or 7th or 8th layer of menu tree options, they always have that one where you get to no, and then there's like that 10 or 15 second pause. Or if you want to speak to a person, press 0, at which point you're like, I want to strangle a person. I don't want to speak to a person anymore. When I called initially, I wanted to speak to a person. Now I only want to strangle one. And so automation is there's going to be two camps. There's going to be the companies that are really highly automated, that have managed to retain some of their humanity. There's going to those that are like completely automated. They've completely dehumanized, and they're going to be hated. They will become outmoded, and those businesses will go out of existence. They will.
So I'm going to be selfish on this one with this question. Help me feel better. So AI is getting to the point where it's almost indistinguishable from humans, right? The videos that we watch, I don't believe a single thing I see on the internet anymore, right?
I understand.
And so I'm a quote unquote influencer, right? You're a quote unquote influencer. Brands work with me and they have me represent, and I do a post and whatever, but I'm a human, right? So I'm a pain in the ass. I have my view of what it should be. And, we work that out with the brand. Like, don't put any shackles on me. I'm not going to read your script, whatever. So now there's an AI version of John, an AI avatar that is cool as shit, does whatever they want, right? Same thing. And let's parlay this to movies, right? You have actors, you got the De Niro's of the world and those type of things that you can feel. But these AI actors, we will get to a point where there's going to be an AI actor that you will not be able to tell. So how, help me understand why that's not going to win. Like, the AI version of John Barrows isn't going to beat John Barrows eventually, because the brand can control the AI version of John Barrows and the brand cannot control the non-AI version of John Barrows. So help me understand how that's not going to happen.
I would say this is one of those things where it's a little bit of, I know it's to my core how it's going to play out. First of all, I've yet to run into anybody who's like, I really can't tell the difference between AI responses and AI comments and AI crap and AI output and AI posts and AI this and AI that. I really can't tell the difference. I mean, it's like, it's not. It's a little too perfect. It's a little too this. It's a little too that. The lighting is flawless. The blah, the you get all these bits and pieces. So, but there's something that I would say this is probably the best analogy I can come up with on the spot. It's kind of like, can anybody really tell the difference between a TV dinner that I put in the microwave and actually something that came from a restaurant with someone who really put their heart and their soul into it? Shit, yeah, I really can. And even if it's one of those really good ones put together by those really amazing chefs who are like, hey, it's like me being in your kitchen. There's a difference. The difference is, I think there's going to be a period where there's going to be a lot of I can't tell the difference, and then I think it's going to flesh out where it's going to be so obvious. Now, there may be a factor of we're going to have to lean into it a little bit more. Like, could AI replicate the conversation you and I are having right now? I don't know. It couldn't.
So, here's an interesting experiment I did. So Guy Kawasaki, right? I mean, your book is kind of has a similar title to some of the stuff he put out. But I had him on the podcast, right? And I was doing my research, and because I always hate asking the same stupid questions everybody else asks, and so I watched a video that Google had posted, and it was an interview with him at Google. It was 2 days before. And he had said in the interview, I created a Kawasaki GPT, and I put every book, every podcast, everything I've ever done in that. And he said in the interview, if you ask Kawasaki GPT a question, you'll get a better answer than if you ask me. And so I was like, well, game on. So I took all the questions that I was going to ask him the next day in the live podcast, and I asked his GPT the exact same questions in the exact same order. Right. And then I didn't tell him when I got him on the podcast, we started having this conversation, and I just went through same exact questions. Right. And at the end, I go, Guy, I know you're a huge AI fan here. I gotta be honest with you, man. I've already had this conversation with you. And he's like, what? I go, yeah, you're GPT, man. I'm like, I asked your GPT the same questions last night. And I go, I gotta be honest, man. You were right. Your answers were better. And he starts laughing, and he's like, well, because he had just come off of surfing to be on the podcast. And he was like, well, then why am I not out surfing? I go, Guy, that's my question to you, is if I can get better answers from your GPT, what the fuck is the point of this conversation? And he got into legacy. He got into all this other stuff. I go, that's not my question. For me trying to learn something from you, you want to grab a beer and have that. AI is never going to replace that because we're humans and whatever else. But when it comes to me trying to learn something from you, what's the point of this live conversation when I can get you on demand whenever the fuck I want it? And I still can't figure that answer out. Especially as a creator, as somebody who has these conversations, somebody who makes money off of disseminating information to other people. I'm having a hard, because I do believe, yes, you're right. I'm the same way as you right now. It's like, I can still tell, right? But can the person in middle of America who isn't invested in the AI world, can they tell? I don't think so, quite frankly. I think they might feel it. I think there might be something, but I think they could easily be convinced by it. Just like old grandparents can be convinced by that cold caller who says that they're done. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're in this dangerous world right now.
First of all, I love the fact you did that. I think that was like freaking ingenious, right? That was a combination of ballsy and wild and out there. That was awesome. I love that. Now, I would challenge this like this. And I so wish that I want you to rewind the tape and get Guy and you and me in on, and have a three-way, because here would be my challenge to him. If your answers, Guy, are not as good, see, and I'm going to back this up a couple steps. So where's the data coming from that AI is getting the answers? From everything he has said and communicated and shared before. The greatest of us that are thought leaders, communicators, disruptors, rebels, etc., add whatever label you want onto it. The greatest of us, we know two things. One, we know something is around the corner. And two, we know that we have no idea what is that thing around the corner. Okay? And we recognize those things and we celebrate those things. That is our ingenuity. That is our brilliance. That is our genius. And if we cannot think, I had this conversation with a dear buddy of mine 2 weeks ago. If we can't think on our feet, if I can't put you in a room and you can't actually have a conversation with no script, with no safety net, if you can't do that, you're not really as valuable as you might think you are. The greatest entrepreneurs can think on their feet. The greatest leaders of any sort, you take it, whether it's political, whether it's entrepreneurial, whether it's culturally, whether it's artistically, the greatest ones can think on their. Why did people go crazy with Robin Williams? Because he would, you throw him a crumb, he'd freaking create an entire universe out of madness out of that. That is the ingenuity of humanity. That is where we shine. Not because he didn't look to the past of what he had said before to come up with that ingenuity and brilliance. He was like, he's going from 0 to 90 in 2.5 seconds, bam, into the unknown. And the greatest of us can embrace the balance between the known and the unknown, which is a point that I go over in brand intervention. I go over the greatest brands have a balance between what's known and what's unknown. Known is what we expect. Known is what we can predict. Oh yeah, sure. That's like the bare minimums, right? That we need. And then you got the unknowns, which surprise and delight us. And that to me is where the magic is. And that's the difference between what AI can do and what we can do. So I would challenge Guy and say, Guy, are you just relying on the crap that you've written and said before and are no longer being ingenious? That would be my challenge to him.
So how do you feel about the quote, history is the best predictor of future success, right? Because I've never been a historian. I have a shitty memory. I literally just move forward. I make all my own mistakes, but I've made a lot of mistakes that if I read a book, if I had talked to somebody else, I wouldn't have made that mistake, right? So there's a lot of people, and the reason I bring that up is because that's what AI is, right? It's looking at history, and then it's potentially predicting the future based on that, like it's predicting the future answer based on the history of the information. And so with that, what is that balance of history, knowledge, and innovation and growth with that foundation?
So the basic thing is this, is that history, someone who just knows history in terms of a series of facts is not an informed individual. They're a reciter of what has happened. The brilliant individual who can actually extrapolate, what did we learn from that? What was the lesson that we learned from that? What was the blind spot that had they actually been paying attention, they would have realized, because history can be used as a crutch. History can be used, to me, the things that any of us rely on that as a dependency weaken us. If we use it as a launch pad, that's one thing. We use it as the thing to climb up to a higher level, that's a different thing. But if it's literally, and I will tell you, we are going to end up with, guaranteed, I take this to the bank, in 24 months, we're going to end up with a very stupid percentage of the population, because unless they have AI there to do their thinking for them, they will have lost their ability to think for themselves. They will have lost their ability to, it's like, all right, stand up there, I'm going to ask you some questions. What do you mean you're going to ask me some questions? You're like, where's, oh, and by the way, give me your iPhone. Thank you. Good. Oh, give me that other device. Give me your smartwatch. Good. Thank you. All right, good. So here's some questions. They're either going to thrive or they're going to die. So those that can do, that have that ability to think on their feet, to extrapolate, and I'm trying to think of what is that? There's one word I was trying to remember. It's one of the greatest words in the world. It's synonymous with impromptu, but it's extemporaneous. It's a word I had to look. It's a word I had to look up. I didn't know what the hell the word meant like 2 years, like a year and a half ago. I looked it up. I was like, extemporaneous. It was like, I immediately invented the definition. It was like, sir, are these bags yours? Oh no, those are just some extemporaneous ones that someone else, it's like, what does that even mean? I don't know. It sounded good. But for those that are listening who don't know, extemporaneous means basically like impromptu, in the moment. It means that you, like, can you extemporaneously think on your feet, right? Can you be, the greatest comedians are extemporaneous, is an example. And the greatest chefs, like, let's look at these incredible, like, cooking shows. Okay, we're going to throw you 6 ingredients that never should be in the same room. Make a meal out of it. If you can't do that, if you can't create that extemporaneously, then you are not a great chef. You should be able to do anything and have it be something, right? So that is That's my very long answer, but honestly believe that that's where we're headed. There's going to be those who cannot think, who have forfeited, they've outsourced their ingenuity, which I think is the most destructive thing you can do. It's like the salesperson it's like, that isn't on my script sheet. I can't think for myself. I don't know how to respond to that. You know that. I know that. That's a disaster. And that is what AI is basically doing on a big, broad scale. Now, there are pluses to AI if used properly, but we're talking about some of the places where there are some limitations, and there are some limitations.
No question. I say it all the time. I think the danger here is we've gone from a search engine to an answer engine. With Google, at least there was a perception of choice, right? We Googled something, and we could all argue that Google kind of told us whatever it felt like telling us, but at least we could choose our truth, if you will. Whereas AI is now an answer engine. It just gives us the answer. And for somebody like you and I, who are curious, who have business acumen, who are interested in those, it's a superpower, because it's like, oh, tell me more about this. How do we get there? Blah, blah, blah. Whereas unfortunately, to the vast majority of our population who are lazy as shit, they're just going to take that answer and copy and paste it. And quite frankly, to your point, in 24 months, I don't know what the point of the human is in that equation. I just don't.
It's the next great thing. It's the surprise. It's the delight. It's the why not factor, right? It's the what if factor. Those are the things that humans will create. And sure, someone's going to say, oh, well, AI can innovate. You know what? Prove it to me. Prove it to me. I will out innovate any AI any day of the week. And there's probably going to be people listening to he's out of his freaking mind. It's like, if you believe that much in AI, then you believe that the human race is not ingenious in terms of its potential of what it can be. And if I ever find that AI is replacing me, and then believe me, I have some clients who are kind of like, hey, David, I went into AI and I told it to say write this and sound like David Brier. I've actually had people say that. And they were happy with what they got. I'm like, okay, good. But the bottom line is that if I ever find myself being that replaceable, I, at that point, will take that as a wake-up call going, all right, I've gotten too complacent and I am going to elevate. And the thing is I have the judgment and ingenuity to be able to make that decision. AI does not.
All right, I think we'll end it there, David. And you know what we should do? We should come back a year later from this and see where we are with this, because I am hopeful that you're right. Let's put it that way.
Well, I have a feeling that we will both each show up rather than send our AI avatars.
Yes. Well, we could do the same thing. We could have all four of us have this conversation together and see where it goes. So.
Exactly.
Awesome, David. Well, tell people you got Rich Brand, Poor Brand out now. Tell people where they can find out where to, obviously it's on Amazon and all that fun stuff, but where do you want to send people here? Yeah.
The bottom line is first of all, I mean, if you have heard this and you're like, wait a second, I need to know more about it. It's like brand intervention is just, it is not like anything you've ever seen. It's like, I mean, literally that's the size of the type in the book.
Nice. I like it. Big words, short pages.
It's like it's big, it's bold, because I refuse to have a book that was kind of like just like everyone else's, where we go, okay, you know what? I'm going to have 300 pages. I'm not going to tell you where the 10 or 15 pages that are really the good shit are. I'm going to make you search for it. I mean, I have a little more respect for every reader than that.
That's why I wrote, by the way, that's why I wrote a children's book. Like, people were going to asking me when I'm going to write a book. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to write about? And most books are so fluffy shit. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to write a book with my daughter, and it's called I Want to Be in Sales When I Grow Up. And it's because I just wanted to cut through all the bullshit and just give people what they actually need.
I love it. But yeah, people can go to Rising, RISING, risingabovethenoise.com. risingabovethenoise.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter. You can there's tons of material and information in there that are just I have over 300 articles on brands, rebrands, and I show you the stuff. Here's the difference between, I'll leave you with this final thought. The difference between me and some of the other brilliant minds are, I actually do the stuff. I create brands every freaking day. And I do this, and it's resulted in billions and billions of dollars for startups to like total rebrands to all kinds of stuff. But the magic is I actually care enough to actually show you, and I'm not just sitting on the side coming up with great observations of the human condition and how people think or what they do or don't do or blah 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 and all that kind of crap. I do it, I love it, and I have a ball with it. And and if you like what you've heard, which if you are a smart person, which obviously you are, because if you're listening to John, you're obviously smart. So obviously you probably, this is probably food for your soul.
I hope so. They're wicked smart kids here in Boston, but now in New York too. Even as we translate out to the Midwest.
Exactly.
Awesome, David. Look, I appreciate the time here, man. It's been a fun conversation.
Totally.
And
all right,
everybody,
man. Great questions. A lot of fun.
Love it, man. All right. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And like I say at the end of all these podcasts, go out there and make somebody smile today, because no matter how bad your day is going or how bad you think it went, if you make somebody smile, you know you had a good day, and the world needs a lot more of that right now. So thank you all very much, and I will see you on the other side. Hey, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. With your support and our incredible guests, we're one of the top sales podcasts out there right now, and I can't thank you enough. Now, to keep the momentum going, it would mean the world to me if you could go and leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform and share some of your favorite episodes with your network. Also, I am super excited to be launching my new newsletter, where I'll be sharing everything I know and everything I'm learning along the way while I'm out there selling every day just like you. Go to jbarrows.com/newsletter to sign up today. Let's all level up and make this happen together.